I'm Sonya Morton Firth and you're watching the Sonya Morton Firth Show. Today my guest is Special Force veteran Jem Hills. At the age of 21, Jem volunteered for one of the world's elite and secretive Special Force units. He served 20 years and was involved with covert operations and active conflict around the world, involving terrorism and weapons of mass destruction. After the military, he was the head of security for the Prince of Brunei. Now Jem speaks on stage and coaches teams about resilience and overcoming fear. Jem, thank you so much for being a guest on my show today.
Well, thank you for the invitation to come.
Jem, tell me about your journey before you got to the Special Forces. What was it about wanting to go into the Special Forces? What sort of triggered that?
I think with a lot of people, when you look at people who've got to really great places, or they've had a certain, they've got to an amazing place, or they've achieved great things, there's probably something that's pushed them, something that was sort of difficult in their early years. And for me, it was a very dark place. And my parents divorced when I was about 7. I didn't deal with it well. And I became insular. My father moved, quite a long way off, and I became withdrawn a little bit. But we moved, and you move house, different part of the town, not too far away. But I acquired a bully, and it was like over several years at that stage, that systemic or the continued bullying, and it wasn't just one, there was several, and I didn't know.
So you were the victim of bullying?
I was the victim, and I don't think the guy actually realised that he didn't wake up one morning and say, I'm going to be a bully. It was just taking advantage, and that's how bullying starts. Bullies take advantage of people that can't answer back, and that's the big thing, is when you're being bullied, you think you'll make matters worse if you tell somebody about it, so you take it, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And when I look back now, that was what was programming my hard drive, and I lost all my self-confidence, I lost my self-belief, and worst of all, I lost my self-worth. So I had no value, which is a really bad place to be for any kid, well, anybody,
Well, anybody but a child particularly.
Yeah. But I was fortunate. Something happened. When you look back, and when I started to speak, I look back at life-changing moments, and one of those, I found dance.
Dance, okay.
And it was dance, but it was a specific dance. We went into a youth club one night, and we went in there looking for girls. I was 13 to 14 years old, but it was these guys doing this amazing athletic dance to this amazing black soul music, and I was like, wow. I want to be involved, but I had no confidence. So I went home and I got hold of some of this music, and I practiced, and I got a little bit better. But a friend invited me to a proper Northern Soul. This was Northern Soul. And we went to this Northern Soul event, and halfway through the evening, they announced a Northern Soul dance competition. I'd never been in a dance competition before, but everybody seemed to get up and were involved in it. And I was like, well, it's dark, nobody's going to see me, so it doesn't matter. So I entered, along with pretty much 99%,
Wow.
Everybody was there. But during that dance, during that time, something really changed. And I could see the judges walking around and just tapping people on the shoulder and asking them to sit down. And the space around me started to grow. And it got bigger. And you're in a zone when you're dancing, and you sort of get in there, and you're like, wow, and you started to do my stuff. But then I got a tap on the shoulder, and I was told, you're rubbish, you can sit down. But I wanted more of that feeling. For that 2 minutes, I really, for the first time ever, started to believe I was good at something.
Wow.
And I'd not known that feeling before, and I wanted more of it. So I found out where more Northern Soul dance competitions were. I went back to my room, I'd watched the guys that were good, and then I'd practice, and I'd copy, and I'd mimic what they were doing. And my dancing got better, and I got into the top 20 of these competitions, then in the top 10, and somehow managed to win a couple of these dance competitions. And you can imagine what that did for my confidence. It started to grow, and I just became a different person. So that was the start of my confidence growing. And then the back of my schooling wasn't still going very well. I still didn't have the academic side. And a friend of mine, Paul, he pulled out this poster in the back of geography. We should have been working, but we got this poster out. And it was amazing. There was all these guys doing these different things. And to be fair, there was one picture in the middle, and there was 4 guys on a beach with a beer, and just underneath it, it said, in 1973, the Marines took a holiday. And I was like, Paul, who are these guys? And he said, they're the Royal Marines, Jim. I'm like, how do you join? He went, oh, it's...
Just from guys on the beach having a beer.
It was all the other stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was just, I'd never flown before, never been in an aircraft, but it was a team. These guys were in a team, part of this organisation, and it was a whole visual impact of just this one poster. And I was like, Paul, how do you join? And he went, Jem, it's easy. I've just signed up. So how do you do that? He told me. So I jumped on a bus and I went to the careers office and I said, I'd like to join the Royal Marines. And it's easy to apply to join the Royal Marines, so I did. And several months later, I was called up for Royal Marine training. And that pretty much changed my life. I mean, because it's the whole discipline, it's joining an organisation. You're talking about, 49 of us turned up on this course. Very apprehensive. And you're taught a lot through, it's 36 weeks, probably the longest military training. But you talk about teamwork, you talk about, sort of bonding together and being part of a group going forwards. And you achieve things. They're pushing you further. At that stage, I was 17 years old and I was being pushed further than I'd been pushed before. But you suddenly start to complete their tasks. Everybody else has done it, but for me, it's the first time I'd ever done those physical tasks. And 36 weeks later, I passed out. The great thing for me was Royal Marine training is designed to make you pass, not make you fail, as long as you stick with it and you just give it what's necessary.
So that was the Royal Marines. How did you then go from the Royal Marines to the Special Forces? Because that's one of the most elite, secretive, as I understand, forces out there.
Going back to that day when I went into the careers office, the guy asked me a question right at the end that I wasn't expecting. And he said, what are you going to do when you pass out as a Royal Marine? And I hadn't thought that far. I didn't even think, I didn't know what you could do as a Royal Marine. And he said, and he could see the blank look on my face, and he said, well, you could be a physical training instructor, you could be a weapons instructor, a driver, a climber. There's all these different trades that you can have. And looking back to that poster, on that poster there was one frogman putting a mine on the side of a ship. And I just went, I'd like to be one of those frogman types. And he laughed at me and he went, you want to join the Special Boat Service? I went, yeah. And when I look back at that moment, he was laughing at me because in his mind he was looking at this little unphysical runt from school, 16 years old, thinking there's no way that this guy is ever going to get to the Special Boat Service. That was in his mind. He didn't know what was going on in my mind, so he had no idea. So I talk about this quite a lot. Never let anybody steal your dreams, because people don't know how strong you are inside and what your determination is to go on and achieve other things.
That's lovely. That's absolutely
lovely. So
right.
That was the first point. And probably in the Royal Marines, we know the Special Boat Service exists, but as you say, they're a secret organisation and they're always over there somewhere. You never see them, they're undercover. But on one particular, when I finished Royal Marine training, I joined 4-5 Commando, which is the Arctic Warfare Commando. They teach you how to survive down to -35. They teach you how to ski and live in the Arctic. And I did that. I hadn't realised at that time that was probably my apprenticeship. The training that we did to go across to Norway to do this Arctic training was intense. It was all done in Scotland, up in the mountains. Extremely physical, but really good if you want to go to those extremes. And so 3 years later, we happened to be on exercise and these 4 civilians skied into our position. They were good skiers. I thought they were ski instructors, and they skied off, and then the rumours started to spread that they were Special Boat Service. I was like, wow, they're the guys that I wanted to be and join. And I went up to my troop sergeant and I said, hey, look, are they Special Boat Service? And he said, yeah. He said, did you want to join? And instead of laughing at me like this guy had laughed at me before, he said, look, if you're serious, then we'll sit down and I'll help you. You need to grow your vision. You need to set some goals. And suddenly I found myself a mentor that actually sat down, because we didn't have the internet then, there wasn't an idiot's guide to joining Special Forces. It was just, we sat down and we put some big goals in place. And I started to train a lot harder, because there wasn't an outline of what you had to do. You just knew you had to be extremely fit. You had to be.
Was there any point along that sort of vision and those goals where you had a low point and thought, God, I'm never going to do this. Maybe I should just give up?
Well, you didn't know, because you wouldn't. I didn't want to give up because I didn't know. You didn't know how far you could push yourself, and I think that was a big challenge to me. It's like, let's give it a go, because you never know how far you can push yourself, and there just might be a chance here that I can complete, the Special Forces training.
Now, I know you can't talk about individual operations, etc., but you must have had some brutal moments, some real low points. Can you talk about the feelings that you had, or how that shaped you at the time, or how that shaped you maybe now?
Absolutely.
As well?
I mean, there's a load of lessons. I mean, the great thing, I'm very fortunate. 20 years in Special Forces, you see a lot. You deal with a lot.
And you were in combat, you were in conflict situations, I guess.
Yes. And now, sort of many years later, it's all those experiences of those times that I can take into companies, and I can help companies with leadership, thinking correctly under pressure. It's those difficult times when we need to have that understanding. And I think one of the takeaways, if you're ever talking to Special Forces people, they're very calm.
I can feel the energy. I can feel how calm you are.
Quite often people think I'm too laid back to be Special Forces, but you see that a lot. You see there's the steely-eyed look, but they very rarely do they get excited, because they take life pretty slowly, because they've been through a lot. And I think it's looking at those situations and understanding those situations, and then a lot of those skills that you learn within Special Forces are so much transferable to business, because that's what businesses want to know. Why would guys put their lives on the line? Not to help just their comrades, but the people they've never met. If you go into a counter-terrorist situation, those guys have never met the people they're going to save the lives of. Yeah. And they're willing to do that because they have this amazing esprit de corps. They have this culture.
Completely amazing. Anybody that gives their life for the country.
And if you could bottle that and sell that to companies, it would be gold dust.
What drove you to do that? I mean, was this, you talked about the beginnings of it, but, you're putting your own life at danger for somebody else's life who you said you don't know these people. How did you sort of continue knowing you're putting your own life at danger? What was
I don't think you don't actually think about it at the time. You look at, whether it's business, you've got a new contract, you've got a new organisation, it might be a takeover, you have to do so many different things to put that together. Project management, that's all it is, and it's looking at that in a different way. It's, we call it reconnaissance, but that's gathering intelligence, and it's, if you want to do a takeover of a company, you want to know as much about that company before you get involved with it, so you do your due diligence on that company, and that's what we would do. We would plan intensely, and not only plan for the success, we would always plan for a possible failure, plan B, what happens if it goes wrong. So you've got those incidents, and in business it's your bottom line. If something goes wrong and you make the
scenario,
absolutely, I guess, and you make the bad decision at the wrong time, you could have lost an awful lot of money. So it's taking that and allowing people, talking to CEOs and people that are in that position, and sometimes just getting them to step back like we would. When a situation gets too hot, when you hear a crack and thump of enemy fire coming in, your heart goes, the adrenaline goes up. It's the same in business. You're getting close to a deal and the adrenaline kicks in. So it's understanding that.
And making the right decisions at that moment.
It's crucial, yeah, and it is. And adrenaline takes over to a little bit. And you need to put yourself in those positions on a regular basis so you can. I talk to people about public speaking. It doesn't matter who you are. Whenever you stand up to deliver something, your heart will go.
Yeah, completely.
You'll know that feeling.
Yes, absolutely.
It doesn't matter because you are putting yourself in the firing line. You're putting yourself up there, and it is you and the audience. But the more you do that, the more you can control that adrenaline. And I think that's why in Special Forces we push the limits. Our training, you asked me about bad things. I've lost more friends in training than they have in operations, because
in the actual training themselves.
In the training, because in that time it needs to be realistic, and you do intense training that is on the line. There's no way. Health and safety is a big part of what we do now, and every accident is covered and looked at and investigated as it should be. But we still have to make that training as not as risky, but as realistic as possible.
Talking about training, I have to ask you this question. You were involved in an incident, an accident, a near-death accident, where your parachute didn't open. Talk me through that situation and what was going through your mind at the time and what actually happened.
Parachuting is one of the things that we do. It's a means of getting us in to behind enemy lines, but we do a lot of training. We normally jump at a reasonable height, but on this day, the lowest height you can jump is 800 feet. And we were in a 7-man stick, and we jumped out of the aircraft. I was number 6 in that 7-man stick. And you fall probably 200 feet before your parachute deploys. So that's 800 feet. I'm now at 600 feet, and then start to spin. So something had gone wrong. I wasn't quite too sure, but there's a drill for that. The military are really good about teaching you drills.
So your first parachute hadn't opened?
I didn't know until the drill was to grab my lift webs and pull them apart.
Yes.
Because I started to spin, so I was like just trying to recorrect myself. But as I came to grab this lift web, it had pulled out of my cake well, and all I could see was it just going up into the canopy of my parachute. And at that stage, I realised that my main canopy was a complete malfunction, and my heart started to go. I'd never been in that position. We trained for it, but I'd never actually had to pull my reserve. But there's a drill, and that drill was to pull your reserve. It's always here whenever we parachute. So I grabbed the big red handle and I pulled it. So I'm now 600, 500, 400 feet by the time that should have deployed. And at that stage, I'd been told that it would bounce out. It's on a big spring. It propels out, and then it just blossoms and takes over from your main canopy. But it wasn't doing that, and I suddenly had this lump of sheet in front of me. And I then said, right, there's a drill for this. What was that? What was that last drill? Flap it like your mother's sheep.
Flap it like your mother's sheep.
So I'm now at 300 feet, 200 feet, trying to flap this sheet. And it didn't work. And at that stage, my main canopy had gone, my reserve parachute wasn't coming, and I got ground rush. And the ground rush, my speed is picking up, I'm doing probably 120 miles an hour, and it got dark, and I just see the ground coming in at me, and at that stage, I thought I was going to die, and seriously thought I was going to die. So
what went through your mind at that point, thinking you're just about to die?
I started thinking about my kids, and it was, in Special Forces we spend quite a bit of time away, and it was just, I wish I could have spent more time with my kids. Because that's it, we don't get a second chance, and that was me, life is over. And with that, I hit the ground, and I opened my eyes.
Did you feel pain?
No pain, no pain, I'm just lying on the ground, no pain, open my eyes and it's bright blue. And I'm like, am I in heaven? am I dead? And then your brain starts to kick in and it starts giving the negativity, and it's like, oh, you're alive, but you've broken every bone in your body, you'll never walk again. And I'm like, oh no, and you start to think, and I started to move my head. But I won't go into too many of the details about it, but I managed to survive it. I did break my back. There was a group of guys that parachuted in the first stick, we were in the second stick. And along with, we have this thing called military humour, and as soon as they ran across to me and they were giving me a hard time, which is what we do to each other in similar situations. But basically, 50 metres, somewhere between 150 metres from me hitting the ground, a gust of wind just got into my reserve chute and it just blossomed a little, which took the impact out of my fall. So that meant there's no way I'd have survived, main canopy and a reserve parachute malfunction. So something just in time gave me enough lift. I mean, I still hit the ground hard. I covered it up for a little while. It's difficult to do stuff like that in the military, but about a year later, I walked into my medical officer's room and I said, I'd like an MRI scan. And he's like, Jem, why? I said, oh, parachute accident. He's like, Jem, we haven't been parachuting for a while. I went, no, it was a few months ago. I had an MRI scan and I broken my back and I had a lower compressed spine.
But that's a miracle.
Pretty much.
I mean, there's a reason you're alive today. Have you looked into that, and have you thought about why am I here? I mean, it's such a fraction. You should really be dead.
But there's a lot of people in that position, and I think in special forces there's other instances like that. That's the type of work life that we lead in special forces. But I think for many years, I was very fortunate. I've seen some amazing inspirational speakers, and I love it when you've got a good story, and you see somebody who's come from down there, and they've got and I've just loved that. But I've always known there's a bit of a story inside, but I didn't know how to get that out, and I didn't know what good I could do with it, and it wasn't until my son, my youngest son, age 17, suffered with a brain tumour. Drastic, absolutely a really dreadful moment, and he had a 7-hour operation, but they couldn't remove all of the brain tumour, and we had some serious moments during that operation. In fact, at one stage I walked into a church and asked to do a deal. As he would,
of course.
And all I wanted was 2 years with him. And 10 years later, we had another operation, or he had another operation. It's him, basically. And he had 100%
Fantastic.
Removal. Age 30, he started his professional rugby career.
Wow.
And the last 2 years he's played, and this is an amazing guy who has another amazing story. And again, those lessons, he's got an amazing attitude to life. And I think
what is this attitude that we're talking about here?
It's a bit of a positive attitude. I now believe that there is a purpose, and I do. My purpose is to pass those experiences on, and we all have negative times. Doesn't matter who we are. There's a negative time. I will go down.
It's our mind that makes it even worse or more negative than that actually.
Absolutely. For me, I need to do something physical that gives the adrenaline's back into the system, the good stuff. And so when I'm feeling a little bit like that, but I've also got other techniques that I've found during my time in Special Forces that I can use, and they're the nuggets I can take into companies and show them about how you remain focused, because we get all this.
And so if there were any little tips or techniques that you could give now, if someone is in a low moment, what would those be, if there's any?
Find your passion. If find something that is you want to do. List a load of stuff down and do a little chart. These are the things I may be able to achieve. But the things you're passionate, I totally believe that we should all find the passion in our life, and it's about following your passion. And so many people, they go to work and 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year, they're doing a job they don't like. I've never been in that position. Find something you want to do, and yes, we all need money. But we need to have a purpose. We need to have that feeling that we're doing something and to give us that achievement. We're the human being. We're tribal, and we want to have those achievements. So if we can find those, and that's what I do with my coaching, is talk to people and actually get them to delve into themselves to find out what they're passionate about, and are they really happy where they are, or can they achieve more? In the forces, you tend to have a big stick and you chase people, but in special forces, you don't. You inspire people to do things, and that's what I want to do.
Interesting. So in the special forces, they actually inspire you rather
You've got to
than
be, otherwise you wouldn't be there. It's like every person has a purpose to be in that organisation, so they want to be there. Where's that come from? It's that challenge within to be the best that we can be. And that's what I talk about in my talks. I talk about how can we all become the best that we can be. Don't look left or right. It's in here.
You, yeah,
absolutely.
There's a word, resilience. It's been bandied about a lot lately. What does resilience mean to you?
We all go down, and it's like you're on a roller coaster. And I think resilience is looking at it when you're down and taking the positives about where you are at that point. And it's you fall forwards and you don't fall back. You learn lessons from when you're down, or things will always go wrong, but it's like looking at that. Was that meant to be? How can I take something that's good out of that and help me go forward with it? Yeah. Because it's just really important. To me, that's what resilience is how you
bounce back.
Absolutely.
Or reframe an
event. Reframe it is a really good sort of word. It's putting it into a different perspective and making it a positive out of that negative.
Yeah, because we all see our own perspectives, and it's quite tunnel vision. And it's not till you open up and look at other perspectives, I think, then you can really reframe an event or a situation. Yeah. Jem, what is it that you're doing now?
I love speaking to groups of people, and I know I'm not going to change or make major differences in somebody's life, but if we look at Clive Woodward and the England rugby team, all he wanted to do was make that 1%. So if I can just help somebody or inspire somebody to look at their life differently, do something and achieve something more, then that's what I want to. That's what I love doing, and I love speaking to audiences about those experiences that I've been through. We do get a second chance. A parachute accident, absolutely. Yeah, that was me, but a lot of people have had similar incidents like that. And so and coaching, whether it's to a large audience or it's to a one-to-one, it's getting into their mind, their psyche, for them to look at themselves and go, yeah, I can achieve more. I want to achieve more.
And you're doing a lot with children and charity work as well. Tell me about the charity work that you're doing.
Because of my son, I got involved with an amazing charity called Teens Unite. And they asked me to speak at their Discover You Day. And it's a day, Teens Unite is 13 to 23-year-olds with cancer. An amazing charity that look after some difficult children that are in difficult places. And I was like, I don't know if I can speak to these kids. But it's about inspiring them to find a passion. Yeah, they may have the big C word, but it's like, don't end it here just because of that. There's a possibility that there's other things. And if you can find the positive, that you can still go on and do the positive things and find the passion that you want to do something that you perhaps haven't dared to do. So we help them find that passion and do the things that they've never dreamt of doing before. And so that was the first time I spoke to this group of people. And since then, I've spoken to many different charities because I love helping people that have had problems. I love going into schools. Schools don't have too many role models anymore. So I think my story helps with kids, and I was never given any good career training. I mean, I did end up in the Royal Marines. But if I can give some advice, I've been in business for 18 years, so I've got that added dynamic that I can bring into the schools and the kids and their career paths to help them choose what's right for them and hopefully find a bit of passion within them that they can go on and achieve great things
Jem, this has been fantastic. We're coming up to the end of the show now, but I'd like to ask you my final question that I ask all my guests, and that's, if you were to write a message in a bottle that's going to be found for future generations, what would that message be?
Pretty much similar to what I've just said, is to go and find your fashion. Live the life you want to live and never give up in pursuing it.
Jem, thank you so much for being a guest on my show.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, there's a new interview out every Monday, so hit subscribe and like, and you'll get it straight into your inbox.